The history of the Comanchero Motorcycle Club spans half a century. When you look at this wall of memorabilia, it's more than just objects. It's a reminder of a legacy built on loyalty, fear, and power. But the story of the Comancheros can be told through the eyes of one ruthless man, a man who embodies the grit and determination of the club more than anyone else. Today's charging of 44-year-old Mick Murray marks one of the most significant arrests made by Victoria Police in recent years. Rising from nothing, Murray stormed through the ranks of the Comancheros, never shying away from violence. In the outlaw world, his name is well known. For years, the police have been on his trail, planting listening devices that will now form part of the case against him. Detectives have not revealed where the bugs were placed or what they recorded, but one thing is clear. Now that they have him in their grasp, they intend to dismantle everything he holds dear. Murray has long been suspected in the 2019 shooting death of drug trafficker Mahat Rimi. Before dawn, heavily armed police raided his home, seizing computers and other evidence. But Murray is no ordinary target. He has been plotting, scheming, and building his influence for decades. He would rather go down fighting than submit to anyone's control. To his enemies, he is like a dragon with many heads. Cut one off and another appears. Those who think they have him pinned down may find themselves mistaken. Tonight, we examine how Mick Murray rose to dominance within the Comanchero Motorcycle Club. What makes him so significant that the police want to break him? What kind of leader has he become that his downfall is considered a national priority? Murray, now the national president of the Comancheros, was taken in for questioning and grilled by detectives for hours. His rise tells the story not just of one man, but of the outlaw culture itself. It begins in 1978, Melbourne, Australia. The Vietnam War had just ended, leaving deep scars across society. Returning veterans carried trauma, isolation, and PTSD, struggling to adapt to civilian life in a society that often ignored them. Out of that alienation, motorcycle clubs flourished, brotherhoods forged from shared pain, toughness, and the pursuit of freedom. Melbourne in the late 70s was a city alive with grit and energy. Factory machines roared and motorcycles thundered down narrow asphalt canyons. It was in this environment that Mick Murray was born. Toughness wasn't a choice, it was survival. His father, a factory worker, and his mother, a nurse, labored long hours to provide for the family, leaving Mick to fend for himself. The streets became his playground and his proving ground. Scraped knees and skinned elbows were badges of honor, earned in daring escapes from cars and reckless adventures. Respect was not given, it was earned, fiercely guarded and easily lost. Murray developed a reputation early not just for his toughness, but for his sharp mind and natural leadership. He could think fast, plan ahead, and command loyalty. The rumble of motorcycles was more than background noise to him. It was a calling, a symphony of freedom, brotherhood, and danger. Surrounded by a tight circle of friends, he spent his youth in late-night rides along the coast and quiet fishing trips by the Yarra River. These moments built his sense of loyalty and belonging, values that would guide his path into the biker world, even as they pulled him deeper into violence and conflict. Some teenagers become lovers, others become rebels. For Mick Murray, the outlaw biker world wasn't just a choice, it was his destiny. He became fascinated with the outlaw biker culture that thrived in Melbourne, so much so that he was inevitably drawn to one club in particular, the Comanchero Motorcycle Club. To some, the name inspired fear, to others, it sparked admiration. For Mick, the appeal of camaraderie and power was irresistible, especially since he had always been a fighter from a young age. The Comancheros were not just another motorcycle club. Founded in Sydney in the late 1960s, They were a brotherhood forged in loyalty, a band of outlaws who lived by their own code. Newspapers reported on their exploits, some sensationalized as daring, others as ruthless. But one thing was certain: the Comancheros were a force to be reckoned with. For Mick, the club was about more than the thrill of the ride. It was about belonging, becoming part of something greater than himself. He craved the camaraderie, the loyalty, and the sense of purpose that the brotherhood offered. He found mentors among older members who taught him the unwritten rules of the club, while helping him sharpen his skills both on the bike and in the darker aspects of club life. Thanks to his grit and determination, Mick rose quickly through the ranks of the Melbourne chapter. He had a natural charisma that drew others in, paired with a fierce loyalty that demanded the same in return. He was unafraid to get his hands dirty, to stand toe-to-toe with anyone who dared challenge him or the club. His reputation as both a strategic thinker and a formidable enforcer grew rapidly, extending beyond the Comancheros themselves. By his early 20s, Mick had already become a prominent figure in the biker world. The brotherhood he found within the Comancheros contrasted sharply with the isolation of his childhood. However flawed, the club gave him identity and mission, something he pursued with relentless drive. Beneath his hard exterior was not just muscle, but a sharp intellect and a shrewd business instinct. He understood that within the club, loyalty and respect were the currency that mattered, but outside in the wider world, money ruled. With that understanding, he ventured into legitimate businesses. He founded the Nitro Gym in Hallam, a place where bikers and fitness enthusiasts could train, and soon after opened a tattoo parlor, another layer of respectability to his growing empire. These ventures flourished under his leadership, not only as profitable enterprises but also as public proof of his ambition. Yet not everyone believed Mick's wealth came only from gyms and tattoos. Rumors swirled in the shadows. Was there more to his sudden rise than met the eye? The truth was that Mick operated in two worlds: the public, legitimate one, and the shadowy criminal underworld. His businesses doubled as vehicles for laundering money from illicit activities, creating a complex financial web that made it difficult for authorities to track his dealings. Despite his attempts to maintain a respectable front, controversy was never far away. Tensions between rival motorcycle clubs in Australia had long been simmering, and in October 2010, they erupted into a violent confrontation at Bondi Beach. What began as a seemingly ordinary encounter quickly escalated into chaos, with fists flying, tempers flaring, and shocked tourists looking on. Mick and his right-hand man, Mark Buddle, were at the center of the brawl, facing off against members of the notorious motorcycle club. The Bondi Brawl became a symbol of the bitter turf wars within Australia's biker community. Several people were injured, arrests were made, and the incident drew heavy media coverage, further darkening the public's perception of outlaw clubs. For Mick, it was both a test of his authority and an opportunity to prove his leadership. Authorities seized on the incident to intensify their pursuit of the Comancheros, digging into Mick's business dealings and connections. He was charged with assault and public disorder, but he fought back fiercely in court and in the streets. Despite the legal challenges, his reputation as a fearless and loyal leader remained unshaken. The Bondi clash underscored not only the violent realities of outlaw motorcycle politics, but also the precarious balance Mick maintained between respectability and criminal notoriety. It was clear that his rise was far from ordinary, and that he had no intention of backing down. And criminal activity within motorcycle clubs often revealed the depth of rivalries and the extreme measures these groups would take to assert dominance. Mick's involvement in high-profile incidents underscored his central role in these conflicts and cemented his position as a key figure in Melbourne's underworld. His response to the Bondi brawl was calculated. He leveraged media attention to project the Comanchero image as a powerful force while quietly working behind the scenes to build alliances and strengthen the club's influence. This ability to balance public perception with internal politics showcased both his leadership skills and his grasp of the dangerous, complex world he operated in. 4 years after the Bondi incident, murmurs about Mick Murray's explosive temper grew louder. In February 2014, a seemingly minor confrontation on a Melbourne road erupted into an outburst of violence that shocked even his closest allies. The incident began when a rider was stopped at an intersection and struck heavily from behind, catapulting him across Forest Road. Reports suggested a heated altercation between Mick and another driver, culminating in an aggressive display that raised serious concerns. Police claimed Mick used his SUV as a weapon. Was this a reckless lapse in judgment or a glimpse into a darker side of Mick Murray, one driven by power and an uncontrollable temper? The episode rattled both law enforcement and the Comancheros. For the club, it raised doubts about Mick's control as a leader. For the public, the story fed into the growing image of a man whose charisma masked volatility. The media portrayed him as dangerously unpredictable, sparking questions about whether he was beginning to unravel. The weeks that followed brought even greater scrutiny. In February 2014, Victoria Police carried out a series of coordinated raids on properties linked to Mick Murray. Officers executed search warrants on his home, the Nitro Gym, and the tattoo parlor, the very businesses he had once held up as symbols of legitimacy. The outcome was explosive. Police seized roughly $200,000 in cash, an extraordinary sum for a man officially running a gym and tattoo shop. The discovery fueled long-standing suspicions that Mick's wealth was tied to organized crime. But Mick refused to play the victim. Instead, he struck back with an audacious legal move, accusing Victoria Police of confiscating the cash and allowing it to mysteriously disappear. Was it a case of corruption within the force, or a clever attempt by police to cripple his finances? The courtroom quickly became his new battlefield, with Mick wielding the legal system as a weapon against those who sought to bring him down. The irony was clear. Once celebrated for his ability to dominate the streets, Mick Murray now fought for survival in the courts. His empire under siege from both the law and his own volatility. Was it a desperate ploy by a cornered man, or a calculated move by a cunning strategist? Only time would tell. The year 2018 marked another dark chapter in Mick Murray's story. The Comancheros boss found himself behind bars, accused of ordering a gangland hit. Mick Murray was formally charged with murder, allegedly orchestrating the execution-style killing of Matat Rassami, a prominent figure in Melbourne's underworld. Details of the case remained cloaked in secrecy, but the charges painted a chilling image of a man willing to eliminate rivals with ruthless precision. While awaiting trial, Mick fought back against the accusations, maintaining his innocence and insisting he was the victim of circumstance, a target chosen by those who wanted to undermine his authority. Still, the damage to his reputation was undeniable. The once charismatic leader and respected businessman was now portrayed in the media as a ruthless kingpin, a puppet master pulling strings within Melbourne's criminal underworld. In March 2018, matters escalated further when Mick Murray was jailed for contempt of court after refusing to cooperate with the chief examiner of Victoria. His silence was seen as defiance, and soon chaos followed. With Mick Murray behind bars, a power vacuum opened inside the Comancheros. Rival factions fought for dominance, and Melbourne's streets erupted in violence. Drive-by shootings, brutal assaults, and intimidation became disturbingly common. Was his absence the spark that set the fire ablaze, or was the violence simply part of a conflict that had long been simmering? What was clear was that McMurray's arrest left the club unstable. Ambitious members seized the opportunity to assert themselves, plunging the group into deeper infighting and intensifying criminal activity. In 2019, McMurray's troubles deepened. He was arrested during raids led by Task Force Sector, a specialized unit within Victoria Police targeting organized crime. The charges against him were severe. His alleged involvement in the execution-style murder of Rasimi Indandanong and a fatal drive-by shooting at Melbourne's Love Machine nightclub. The trial became a national spectacle. Prosecutors painted McMurray as a cold-blooded leader who used his position as national president of the Comancheros to order killings and consolidate power. The defense countered by portraying him as a scapegoat, a victim of rival agendas and flawed investigations. They argued that much of the evidence was circumstantial, questioning the credibility of witnesses and suggesting that some of the police work had been mishandled or tampered with. Media coverage was relentless. Every new revelation was dissected by commentators and followed closely by the public. Inside the club, tensions escalated as factions struggled for power, using the uncertainty around their leaders' fate to justify their own moves for dominance. When the verdict finally arrived, its implications were enormous. A conviction would likely mean a lengthy prison sentence for McMurray and could signal the collapse of the Comancheros Melbourne chapter. An acquittal, on the other hand, would not only restore his authority, but also cast serious doubt on the strength of police investigations and the effectiveness of the justice system. Regardless of the outcome, one truth was undeniable. The McMurray saga was far from over. His story, woven with ambition, loyalty, betrayal, and violence, remains a symbol of both the allure and the danger of Australia's outlaw motorcycle world. The aftermath of his trial would shape not only the future of the Comancheros, but also the broader landscape of organized crime in the country.